These WWE finishers didn't fit the wrestler. Here's what they should have used. The way a wrestling match ends can often dictate how fans remember it for years to come. Other than the creative direction and storytelling of the match, the individual wrestler's finishing move is perhaps the most important aspect of what happens in the squared circle. Fans often connect certain finishing moves to certain wrestlers. The Undertaker's Tombstone Piledriver and Last Ride aren't just cool moves, they fit perfectly with the wrestler's persona. Any wrestler that hits a jumping cutter will immediately recall fond memories of countless RKOs, courtesy of Randy Orton. However, the same cannot be said for every wrestler in WWE. Sometimes they have a bad finisher or one that just doesn't fit their overall in-ring style and ability. Sometimes it can even be a combination of both, and they would have been better off using a different finisher instead. Bayley has had a finisher problem throughout her WWE run. Despite winning several championships and marquee matches, Bayley still remains relatively underrated. The future Hall of Famer is one of WWE's most reliable performers and can excel as a babyface or a heel. But her finishing move has always been a glaring weakness. The Bayley to Belly was an incredibly basic move. The rose plant takes ages to set up and doesn't look like it hurts very much. Neither move leveraged her technical ability either. Her flying elbow drop isn't the most impressive either. Bayley would be much better served relying on a submission move. A classic like the crossface, or an underrated move like Dean Malenko's Texas Cloverleaf, makes for much better fits. If she can execute it, cattle mutilation could be an incredible finisher too. John Cena's STF is ineffective. The STF is one of the weakest-looking submission finishers ever. It looks like it could cause mild discomfort at best. The attitude adjustment needs to be hit several times to finish a match, but it remains iconic. As Cena embarks on his retirement tour, switching things up to win his 17th World Championship makes a lot of sense. Swapping out the STF for the classic ankle lock could be a masterstroke for Cena at this point in his career. The move is an ode to the man he debuted against, Kurt Angle. The visual of Cena looking to set up the STF, pausing, and then grabbing and twisting the ankle would be incredible. Naomi's rear view needs higher impact. Naomi is a far better wrestler than it feels like WWE allows her to be. Fans saw just what she was capable of during her stint with TNA. The rear view has always been a dumb, weak finisher. When Naomi was still green, it sort of made sense. But now that she's a seasoned veteran, she should phase out the rear view. Something like Darby Allin's coffin drop would be flashy enough and showcase her athleticism, but function as a far more effective finisher. Liv Morgan's ObLIVion is clunky on a good day. Liv Morgan has exceeded expectations time and time again, but she is still not quite ready to lead the entire women's division, unlike friend-turned-foe Rhea Ripley. Regardless, Morgan has evolved a great deal, both as a character and an in-ring performer. Her finisher is unique, but doesn't look all that effective. It also has too much margin for error. Morgan could adopt a DDT variation or a pop-up facebuster. Either move would work better than ObLIVion, and would shake things up for her in the ring too. The Manhandle Slam is a sore spot for Becky Lynch. It's hard to categorize Becky Lynch's wrestling style, but most agree she relies on her technical skill and toughness to win matches and titles. She has used the disarm her for the longest time, which is a perfectly serviceable submission finisher. She has also been using the Manhandle Slam, a pump handle runnage, over the last few years, but it hasn't worked out all that well. Lynch doesn't have the raw strength to hit the move with the required viciousness, which means it's often underwhelming. She could adopt a secondary submission like the guillotine, a variant of the spinebuster, or even the Busaiku knee. Hulk Hogan's leg drop destroyed his spine. Hulk Hogan does not have a positive relationship with modern audiences, but a lot of WWE's worldwide appeal today can be attributed to his drawing power. For years, Hogan won main events and titles in WWE, finishing off countless wrestlers with his atomic leg drop. The move is very simplistic by today's standards, but was a big deal back then. However, considering Hogan's build, he would have been better suited to using the powerbomb as his finisher. His leg drop was iconic, but it essentially destroyed his spine and accelerated his decline as an athlete. Rhea Ripley outgrew the Riptide years ago. There is a section of fans that believe Rhea Ripley is being overpushed by WWE, but that's tough to agree with when anyone sees the kind of reaction she gets from fans and her undeniable aura. Ripley is a star with real mainstream potential and will be one of the pillars of the women's division for over a decade. Her finisher, though, no longer fits with her intensity in the ring. The Riptide is just fine when Ripley should have something great. All the best finishers have that picture moment. Cena with his opponent on his shoulders, Undertaker's face between his opponent's calves before the tombstone piledriver. Ripley needs that moment to get to the next level. If she wants power, she could do a slingshot powerbomb or even a spear. Ripley is a hybrid athlete and can rely on any number of moves to finish matches, other than the Riptide. Big Show's WMD only damaged his match finishes. Big Show's Chokeslam was a perfectly fine finisher, which makes the decision to transition to the WMD even more confusing. A punch to end a wrestling match is the definition of underwhelming. It was dumb. Even if WWE didn't want him using a regular chokeslam, a modification could have worked just as well. Turning it into a pop-up chokeslam, or even a chokeslam onto the knee like a neckbreaker would have been great. The Samoan Spike hasn't worked as a finisher. The Samoan Spike is a cool name, but it's really just a thumb to the throat. It could hurt, but there is no way it should be a finisher. It didn't work for Umaga, and it really doesn't work for Solo Sikoa. For several weeks before he tried to replace Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, Sikoa's character was all about staring at his thumb like it was a powerful weapon. Sikoa's spinning solo is already a much better finisher. If he still wants to honor Umaga, he could update the classic corner hip attack. With his opponent dazed and seated on the canvas, Sikoa could run the ropes to pick up speed before throwing himself into his opponent, hip first. It would be a high-impact, devastating move that would also allow him to immediately transition into a pinfall by landing on his opponent. The Great Khali's sprain chop left fans numb. The Great Khali remains one of the most limited performers WWE has ever seen. He was slow, lumbered, and stumbled through matches, couldn't cut a promo, and was a boring character. But he was a big man. A really big man, which meant he was going to get a shot. He used the two-handed chokeslam and a two-handed skull vice. Both moves were okay. But then he also started using the brain chop, which was just ridiculous. Fans suspend their disbelief to a degree when watching professional wrestling, but the idea that a smack to the head would win matches was a step too far. WWE could have gone in a different direction and given him the full Nelson to use. The idea of a man as big and intimidating as Khali breaking opponents down would have been better than any chop to the head.